Hello my loves, Dana here, known by many as Dana Spirit Butterfly. This video is an energy forecast for the end of the year, looking into what needs to be wrapped up before we move on to 2025. If you are looking for a program across this period to help you with your energy, of course, I'm also running a Becoming program that I've done for 6 years now in a row. That will help you with this, for you to do your own private practice, to help you do this, to help you reconcile yourself with the energy that was of 2024, and to prepare and reset your intentionality heading into 2025. These types of practices are very important to take control. You know, I kind of use that term loosely, take control, but you know, sovereignty is a word that's bandied around quite often within spiritual landscapes for a very good reason. And partially this is because sovereignty in itself is an acknowledgement of the power that we have, a power that we all have of choice and decision making, but also in terms of regulating energy flow and where our energy goes. As I land on where our energy goes, spirit that I'm sitting with today is just reminding me that where your energy's gone for 2024 is not wasted. So anything that you've done in the past, over the last 12 months, that's just felt a bit wacky or like maybe it was the wrong direction for you, I'm getting assurances that that energy is and was not wasted. The reason why we say that is because all things have a reason and all things have a rhyme. What underpins us as humans, as womans, because we all come from one, a woman, is that we all have these relationship needs and these connections that help us to reflect on ourselves and to find ourselves in space and time, i.e. orientate ourselves better. And these are journeys, these are landscapes that create maps in the mind, that creates maps in our physiology. Some might call them song lines in our system that help us to retain particular things and to discern, you know, the things that are worthy of our attention and our time and of holding on to. And as I say that, of course, this time of year, December, is often a time where, you know, we've just, particularly here in the Southern Hemisphere, we've just stood still with the sun, the summer solstice. We've just met that celebratory time in the old pagan Celtic roots tradition and of course, across the globe, there's an understanding of this time because it is the time where the hemispheres, whether in the north or south, meet, have a tipping point where the available light, i.e. the sun, the solar energy, either hits the longest or the shortest amount across the year. And these tipping points are great opportunities to stand still, to pause for a moment and to acknowledge how we're doing and what we're doing with our lives, partially because energetically the solar energy, the sun energy, is not just a life-giving force, but also, I mean, just look at, you know, the rates of vitamin D and how important vitamin D is for our system. Vitamin D we actually receive from the sun. It is the sun vitamin, if you will. It helps us with brain function, it helps us with digestion, it helps us with skin integrity, it helps us with so many things. This talks about our relationship with the sun, and our relationship with the sun in the modern paradigm that many of us live or have come from being educated in mainstream systems. Our relationship with the sun is not only ignored, but it's demonized. It's demonized with all these stories, these song lines through the collective field that suggest that being in the sun is bad or is harmful for you. And the challenge with that is partially that's a really good evidence. There's very good evidence of how collective ideas, when they penetrate the minds of individuals, can actually shift the way your cells express themselves to make that true, to make that your reality. And so if you're slapping on sunscreen before you go out, you know, we don't shame or blame any person for their choice. These things are impacting us. But if you're using these types of things, they actually shift your relationship with the sun. In fact, they demonize your relationship with the sun, saying that the sun is bad. Except where you create some spaciousness, some space, some awareness that sun ultimately is a life-giving force, and it is essentially good for you. Being in the sun without all of the chemicals on your skin is a vital part of your receivership of the wisdom, of the abundance that surrounds us, that helps us with health, that helps us with wellness, that helps us to feel buoyant in life. I mean, vitamin D, access to the sun, available light impacts things like depression, anxiety. Your ability to feel well in yourself also then will increase your availability to show up to work, your availability to have those conversations, your availability to be in life. And so there is a flux that moves through our energy systems, often with these programs, with these ideas that basically move us away from this relationship with the sun that is healthy and acknowledging and celebrating the fact that we just hit solstice in our older traditions and our historical traditions, that which belonged to our ancestors way back before the Christianity wave came and reprogrammed our relationships with the earth and with the mother, the great mother. These relationships, they are ones that we deeply crave, ones that we are really lacking in. Many of us don't have great relationships with the earth. Many of us actually avoid being outside. And if that's you, I still struggle sometimes on those days where I just don't want to go outside and I just don't want to be in the world. Those things make me human, woman, i.e. attached to the system or the currency of what it is that we've been educated in. The programs that tell us that this is the way you're supposed to live our lives actually have lost their balance. They've lost their relativity to the real world we actually live in. And that real world that you live in is the one that's outside your front door in the local environment. And so as I say that, I just want to bring myself back to the fact that solstice, standing still with the sun, the longest day of the year, these energetics actually directly impact not just your physical body, but also your emotional landscapes and also your neurology, i.e. your ability to remember things, your ability to know what's good for you and to make solid and sound decisions, i.e. feel confident in your sense of sovereignty, your ability to act with power, with influence, with impact. And so sometimes it's just simply acknowledging that our relationships with the natural world is what's suffering at the moment, and it is the reason why so many of us have trouble with our lives. We get stuck in mind traps and mind loops that tell us that certain things are important when actually they are just constructs of some very complex human mental landscape that is trying to prove our intelligence rather than acting with intelligence. So before I go too much further into the future, into talking about 2025, I just want to acknowledge I'm on Kaurna country, otherwise known as Adelaide, South Australia, and I want to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of this land, the Kaurna people. I was born here, and so I do consider myself as belonging here on some level, in some way, shape or form, but this is not where I currently reside. Acknowledging that for me, and as a part of all of the practices that I've been offering over the years as a spiritual practitioner and medium, it's been really important to inspire in others this relationship, this understanding that the life that they live today is actually the product not just of them showing up to their lives or not showing up to their lives, and instead, avoiding, because we all do that sometimes. But it's also an acknowledgement of, the historical referencing, the storylines, the songlines that have actually led to us being here now. Because those storylines, they impact the way that we breathe, actually. Because the way our ancestors navigated their experience of life, the way that your birth parents navigated their experience before and you were born, and also during your upbringing, these things imprint. These things have left codes in your body, your physiology, that impact you today. And you can disregard that and just go, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. I understand you because I was you once. I did dance with my energetics in that way. But I found that I kept getting blocked. I kept getting stuck. I kept getting trapped in these ideas of life rather than the reality of what I was living. It prevented me from being able to better understand why it is that my innate impulses would feel like I wanted to go in one direction, and then the things I was told I should be doing might even take me in the opposite direction. And there was always this tension and this contrast that I was dancing. And Spirit's reminding me that life is about contrast always. It's about contracts that stimulate change, and change often comes off the back of a feeling sense of not liking what's going on. You know, we don't often change things if we're satisfied and feeling deeply fulfilled. In that case, we usually instead fight to resist change. But change is inevitable, and particularly 2024, the year of the wood dragon, was very powerful for so many people in terms of asking them to get real with everything. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, we were talking about, and a lot of spiritual practitioners were talking about 2024, the year of the wood dragon, being a very potent potential for so many of us to step up into our own private landscape so that we can start to voice ourselves more potently and to find that lion, that dragon's roar. You know, hopefully being able to find the dragon's roar without burning down all of the houses in front of us. But this year also was very powerfully fire driven, which is a year of alchemy, is a year of, you know, taking something and completely changing it overnight by setting fire to it. So many of you might stand where you are today looking back over the last year, and you might go, well, okay, so much just happened, and my relationships were challenging for me, and my ability to stand in my own potency and power and truly openly voice what I was thinking about things, that was really challenged. And good, you know, those challenges are often, as Spirit always says to me, often in people's readings, they are the opportunities for you to do something different, for you to maybe find a new way. And the opportunity to find a new way is actually the very definition of healing, the very definition of taking the cellular DNA habits that we've inherited from our generations before us, and those that have created the architecture of the life that we live today, which of course, you know, the way that you live today is not impacted so much directly by you, except we create future, right? So everything that we change today becomes the new future. And so a lot of the gifts of the last year was really about showing up to the discomfort and showing up to the things that, you know, didn't feel quite right and you were ready to change. And Spirit's reminding me that came off the back of about 4 years of frustration for a lot of people. You know, dare I drop the word COVID? You know, sometimes it's like, can I say the word? Can I not say the word? That whole environment, whether at the time it impacted you deeply or not, doesn't matter. It shaped the future. It changed the landscape. It changed a lot of the optionalities of the way that we saw our potential. And some of us are still carrying the distrust of institutions and of other people and their ability to freely make their choices without impacting us. Some of us are still lacking trust in that. And some of us are still having difficulty going outside fully, openly, and engaging in those pursuits that previously we would have taken for granted. You know, coming back to solstice, the time of celebration, I'd imagine that if you are still watching this video and it's still December, that a part of you is maybe watching this video because you need a break, because you're maybe tired and fatigued, and you're feeling the weight of distress of what is, you know, about to come. From solstice is, of course, what a lot of people celebrate Christmas, and thereafter is New Year's. And, you know, the kids, if you've got kids, they're, you know, just ending school. There's just so many things that are putting pressure on you, pressure on us. Also, this year often stimulates or triggers people's sense of family and belonging. And you may find it in the background, in your mind chattering. You might notice some of the doubts or some of the frustrations, or even feel really visceral rejection from, past stories, past experiences of this time of year. This time of year is quite uncomfortable for so many people. It doesn't need to be, but it is true. If you're a conscious, awake woman, then you are going to feel some feelings. You're going to feel some resistance towards some things that are moving through you. Spirit's just like, yes, resistance. Resistance is good, particularly as we finalize the year of the wood dragon. The resistance is still your opportunity to go, okay, this is the way it was done before. This is the way that my ancestors, my family, the people that I've been living with, the people that I was raised with, this is their ideas. And their ideas have value. Of course, there's always value in all things, and absolutely there's a reason why they chose to do things the way that they did. Perhaps they're just still replicating that which the generation before that was doing. Maybe they're still holding on to that, because people do, right? Like, particularly when people are feeling unsafe, they hold on to the known. And there are some people in your life, I'm pretty sure, who aren't showing up to their stuff. They're not showing up to the things that they're supposed to show up to because they've already checked out for this time of year. And Spirit's just saying, if we can gift you with a piece of advice, let them do. Just let them do. They don't have to bother you. You can show up in your own life in your own way. And you also have sovereignty. You also have power. You also have an ability to go, okay, well, we were supposed to do that together. You're not showing up to that, so therefore we can't do that together anymore. And that's your power. You can say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do something different. Maybe you're going to do something on your own. Hooray! Beautiful, amazing. That means more space for you to do what you want. And if that's going to trigger for you a whole lot of aloneness, a whole lot of abandonment trauma, again, Spirit's like, hooray! We don't want you to suffer. We don't want anybody to suffer. But unfortunately, the suffering comes from the resistance of change. The suffering actually often is not so harsh on our systems when we're in ownership and full sovereignty of what's going on. Our power to make decisions, our power to do different things needs acknowledgement. You need to be able to say, even, like, it doesn't matter what it is that you decide to do. What matters is that you actually know that you have some options here. You are not wedded to any person. I don't care what your relationship structure is. There is some ability for you to wiggle and do something slightly different. And Spirit is just saying, sometimes if you've never done anything different and you've always just done the dumb thing, sometimes all that you need to do is change one little thing to start the chain reaction of change. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you fix all the problems. What matters is simply that you take a couple of steps back, take a few deep breaths and center yourself and ask yourself a different question, a better question. What can I change? What is within my landscape to do differently? And again, doesn't matter what you choose. What matters is simply that you gift yourself the space and the awareness that you have some power. This last year was not supposed to be easy for any person. Spirit is saying we're all building up to something better. We are building up to something better. A better life, a better way is possible. But it's not probable if you're not willing to dive within and see yourself and how you're impacting others. Even if you feel like your world looks like everybody else doing their thing and you not having any impact, you are still impacting because you have a voice, whether you're using it or not. You have an energy and a body that takes up space and uses things. You have likely money of some kind in the bank that you can direct somewhere. You have influence. You've always had influence. If you're looking for some influence that you're not getting, that's going to be frustrating. You're going to feel like you don't have impact. But what is usually happening in that scenario is you want something really badly and you're not able to get it yet. And that can tip us into feeling like we have no impact. And this is technically untrue. So, enough of the lecture, if you can call it that. We're going to move on to what to expect for 2025, but Spirit does want to flag a few concepts with you before we do that, partially in reflection first, because in order to prepare for 2025, you do need to prepare your mental landscape. You do need to separate a bit of space and time to know about a few landmarks in life and living that do make the difference. Now, we tend to lean into some of the astrological alignments, which is not the only way to map realities. It is a way because it pays respect to the fact that as beings on a planet, we are not without influences and also not without storylines or song lines that call to the fronts of our minds, certain ideas and concepts. And so with astrology, for example, whether you believe in the 13 star system or the 12 star system that was, established and snapshotted about 2,000 years ago, I can't remember who Copernicus comes to mind, but, don't quote me on it. I don't pretend to be an expert in astrology, but what I do know is that it actually doesn't really matter what system that you're in. What matters is that you're aware of where your alignment sits with it. And your alignment is something that will dance in the unconscious of you. Maybe it's been imprinted by others. Perhaps it's been a part of your education system, or maybe the religious organization that you've been associated with now or in the past, or perhaps in a past life. But you need to understand where your cosmology sits, where your attachment to certain ideas and concepts that are meaningful to you and that make sense to you. It's your responsibility to understand that. I lean into astrology a little bit, just a little bit, as a way of anchoring my psychic senses, my spidey senses. And those of you who are watching this video who have already done my The Claire's course, hooray, congratulations, I'm so excited. We're going to be doing the next level in a regular weekly development circle starting from the 7th or the 8th of January, depending on which hemisphere you're in. So please do join us. Let me know if you're interested in that. But if you haven't learned about the Claire's or done any psychic sense work, this is basically the very human, very woman gifts that we all have, because we all have them, which are basically the subtle variations of our physical senses. Now, this allows us to peer behind the maps, the belief systems that we carry, the cosmologies that we're attached to peer behind them so that we can get a better sense feel of what that relates to and how it meets us in a meaningful way. It also allows us to get into collective field consciousness, like I am, and to dialogue a little bit more fully with your own here now consciousness, the thing that you have, the thing that you look out with your eyes and your ears and your nose and your mouth and all the rest of it. There are physical versions of that, and there's also energetic versions of that, or subtle variations of that. As you start to peer into that, you start to get a better sense of how the human is designed, of how our relationships work, of how our past experiences through ancestry and also through soul's memory interact with our system to form the pictures that we hold in our heads of all the things that are around us, i.e. the maps that we carry. And a failure to understand about these things basically just leaves you with a limited perspective or ability to actually perceive yourself in space and time, i.e. value yourself. If you suffer from low value or low confidence or anxiety or whatever, it serves you to understand a little bit more about how to peer behind the obvious to get into the hidden or the mysterious. And this is what psychic senses are. This is what the Claire's do. And so with the Claire's, with these psychic senses, these psychic language discernment tools, they help to unlock or unravel your deeper intelligences, your ability to understand where your edges lie, your ability to say, actually, I feel that that's there, but I know that there's something else behind that, and I'm not sure I want to be attached to that, so I'm going to make a different decision and choice. So learning about it helps you to get better at life and helps you to see yourself in space and time as the organismic orgasmic being that we are, ecstasy and pleasure while still living an abundantly wealthy and healthy life is more possible or probable there. So please check it out if you'd like. The first course of the clairs that we're starting again is on the 26th of January, which is Australia Day down under. But please peer into that and have a look. We mention that because your availability for that information will help you to navigate what's coming in terms of the expansion of human consciousness. We are all feeling more emotions than ever. In fact, 2025, the Chinese year of the wood snake, is a much more water frequency, is much more emotionally charged. There will be a lot of feels coming up for you, for all of us. There will be a lot of language shared that is more complex than it ever has been. No longer are we leaning into parts of us that are established to keep with the status quo, just keep the matrix flowing. There are so many changes that have been happening with the bigger organizations that are now stopping or blocking energy from flowing innately and naturally, that you'll notice things like your bank will just suddenly do something weird electronically and you won't be able to get access to your funds. Or you'll notice that, you're shopping online and somehow it accidentally charges you twice and then it takes you like 2 months to figure out how to fix it. You will notice that with the expansion of the information superhighway, i.e. the internet, comes greater fluidity of how all of these things are designed, and it's more loose. So while the governance structures are working hard to build all of these systems to keep everything a little bit safer and a little bit more organized for you, which is a natural part of the human race and the way that we move, you will find that some of these will create blocks to systems that are going to make it harder for energy to flow. And the natural consequence of that is that you're going to experience more resistance and you're going to experience more emotional charge releasing or wanting to release through your system. Spirit says again, hooray, this is good, this is fantastic, because it is the calling for you to get responsible with your feelings, for you to own what it is that's moving through you. If you've not done any emotional landscape mapping yet, if you've done no somatic releasing practices, you will find that it's tough when you first start to acknowledge your emotions and start to feel them. But you get better at them, you get more flow with them, and as you get more flow with them, your intelligence picks up. In fact, your metabolism speeds up. There's a whole lot of things that actually shift and change in reference to your energetics that benefit you. If only you listen and let yourself sit with those feelings. If you don't know how to do that, then please look at my Rose Initiation program. It is also an online program, also a self-paced thing. I'm not just saying that to sell it to you, it's because Spirit asked me to set these tools up online so they're easy access for all of you to get held as you're navigating your way through these very challenging times. It is a way for you to start to feel, sense, and know yourself a little bit better so that you can resource energy in a way that's powerfully backing and supporting your own energetic matrix, i.e. your own health and well-being. And too few people in the past have looked towards this, but more and more we need to because the energetic outcomes are important for us to start to ground and anchor our building of the relationship with our bodies, with our emotional maps, and also with our cosmology, the way that we think and feel and sense, and what it is that we believe spiritually, which is entangled with the way that our mental mind mapping system works. So the way that you think, the mind chatter, all of these weave into a greater cosmic consciousness of spirituality. Not religion, but spirituality. And the difference is very important to notice. So moving forwards, just a few astrological dates. The new moon, the very first new moon that kicks off really the first of the year. I'm actually going to bring it back to the one that happens on the 31st of December. Why? Because it's right on that window of New Year's. It's right on that window of when 2024 turns into 2025. So the first new moon in Capricorn energetics can be a little bit fixed. They can be very particular, and they are kind of great at like administration. So during that period of time, it's actually not ideal for you to instigate any massive changes. You will find that that energy can leave us feeling a little bit closed or turned inwards. It can leave us feeling a little bit sensitive to people who want to impress change upon us, or seem or appear to want to impress change on us. It also, basically, Spirit is just saying, it is a calling for us to just get really clear on the basic fundamentals of the things that for you aren't changeable. They're the things that for you, if those things aren't in place, you should say no. They are the boundary settings for you. And so we start the new year with a new moon in Capricorn that will be a little bit slow and a little bit grounded and a little bit focused on mechanical structural needs. And this is good. This is actually not a bad thing. From there, if you, for example, for New Year's Eve, just make sure that you've got water on hand, make sure you've got, a couple of things that are going to support you to go through that window, then you'll be fine. You'll be able to release and relax and celebrate fine. But if you don't have some fundamental grounding things in place, you'll find that the New Year's window will be a little bit rocky, a little bit stimulating of some emotional charge. And, as Spirit was saying before, the stimulation of emotional charge is actually a good thing. It's actually good to feel your feelings and to notice that those things are there. But obviously, if you're feeling feelings like anger, sadness, grief, any of those things, they don't feel nice to feel. They don't. So, it doesn't mean that it's not good for you to feel them. It just, they themselves, we don't often have a cultural landscape that supports us to be with those feelings comfortably. So they feel even more overwhelming than they probably would if you reached a level of comfort with them. Feelings in themselves don't hurt people, action does. So just so that you know, you can feel your feelings fine. It's not about the feelings. We then move into a full moon in Cancer, which is on the 14th of January here in Australia. And so that's about 2 weeks in. This can be great for relationships, actually. This can be where love is heightened, because the Cancerian energy is one where it doesn't look at superficial things. It actually looks more at the deeper heart and the deeper, what I call the deeper well. And so don't be surprised that whatever it is that moves through you for the new year, by the 14th, there may be some good feels that come from that evolution, from that movement, from that cycle. We're not going to shame or blame anybody, but if you have expectations towards people who can't meet you, i.e. it's not a right relationship with you because that person doesn't feel the same as you, you will find that the Cancerian energy can leave you feeling a bit bitter and a little bit insular. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, you guys are in winter. It's actually a perfect time for you to introspect and for you to prioritize the self. But if you're here in Australia, it is heading into what's called Lammas or Lucina, which is high summer. And the high summer, the high energy is usually, there's a lot of warmth in the weather. And obviously January, there's quite a lot of fast-paced moving energy with a lot of things, and people are like trying to celebrate and other people are trying to work. And sometimes it just, people have challenges in January. Often that kind of bunny hopping at the start of the year can be a bit distressing for some people. So Spirit is just saying, whether you're in northern or southern hemisphere, winter or summer, our advice is simply to slow down, breathe, create some space for feelings, and remember the difference between feeling feelings and taking action. Sometimes it's just a simple matter of stepping out of reaction and being more deliberate, more mature in what action you take. The first new moon is on the 29th of January, which is an Aquarian new moon. The Aquarian energy can actually be quite, it's much lighter. It's an air sign for starters. And also expect that that's the time where the emotions that are starting to move through, you start to get a better grasp of them and things start to ground a bit more fully. And this aligns really firmly with the beginning of the Chinese New Year. So the Chinese New Year actually isn't based on the Gregorian calendar, it's based on the lunar cycles. And so moving through 13 lunar cycles actually puts the Chinese New Year on the very first new moon of 2025, which is why 29th of January is bang on when that energy is stabilized. And as I say to people who do my Becoming program, you really do have up until the 29th of January to get your ducks lined up so that then you can kind of start really more firmly landed in that New Year's presence to start to really own what 2025 is going to be about. And 2025 is the year of the wood dragon, which is, you know, like a kind of like wood energy is like springtime. Wood energy can be light and it can be, bendable. It tends to move in the wind rather than, crack and get really stubborn and rigid. So 2025, there's actually a lot of evolution that can happen quite firmly and powerfully in 2025. Snakes in themselves, there's all this negative association with snakes, but snakes in themselves, yes, they can be cunning, but also they only react at you when they're feeling attacked. Otherwise, they usually are very aware and they know how to care for themselves, and they process energetically spirally, so they shed their skin, and they are really good at just letting go of old and embracing the new light, the new energy, the new ideas and functions. And so 2025 energy will move quite fast. Like we talked about it being a water year, the water energy is just going to flow really easily if you have a level of comfort with your emotional landscape and you allow that stuff to move. You'll find that new stuff will come to you relatively quickly. When you can ground and anchor that energy, you'll be surprised at how much the world is your oyster and how much things can change. Spirit is saying we see a lot of success in 2025. A lot of business projects that previously weren't able to get traction will actually land in 2025. People are far enough away from the COVID landscapes where they're actually way more comfortable with their new way. There's still a lot of shakedowns that will happen on the level of institution. And Spirit is bringing me to mind the political landscape in the US is actually less than stable right now. And Spirit says just be careful of some of the fears and the anxieties that are being stimulated with the political environment. A lot of the things that people are talking about that suggests that certain things are going to happen, they won't be able to land in 2025. So a lot of it is kind of hot air. And it's up to you whether or not you want to engage on that level. Maybe you do. Maybe your personality needs to get some of your fire energy out in that way. It's fine for you to participate in that, but just be careful about the energy spirals that have you contributing to some of the misinformation versus the things that you actually do know for certain are true. Don't pay attention to the people who you feel are pulling you into their whirlwind. The whirlwind that they're in often is reflecting some personal journey that they're on that maybe they're ignoring and bypassing in preference for the collective landscape. And for other people, maybe it's just because they're very passionate about that topic and they want to make change and they don't know how to. And so, regulation is king, sovereignty, understanding your power of balance, understanding how to stand with conversations that feel like you can hold them, and if you can't, being able to gracefully say, hey, that's really great for you, I'm really excited, I've got something that I really need to attend to now that's important to me, if you forgive me, I'm going to go. Graceful words, graceful presence, graceful practice is not about disowning people. It's actually about knowing your worth and knowing your value. And today, recording this in the solstice gateway, know your value, know your abundance, know the wealth that you are. I assure you that underneath your external facade is a whole weight of gold that is just waiting to be discovered and to be expressed by you. If you need some support with that, of course, I offer reading services. As you know, let us tune in on your behalf to help you see more of what is inside of you that perhaps might need a bit of support to move through you so that it can be expressed and available to others. Or please peer into my Patreon work, which has that psychic senses, discernment skills practice and the rose initiation both of which, if you do those, opens up to the Rose Legacy work, which is a much deeper dive into Rose landscape. And if you've done the clairs, then that will also open up a weekly container to hold your psychic development, which is always worth doing, is always worth exploring. So with that, we will leave this video here. We are doing slightly different videos heading into the new year, more seasonal and less every moon cycle. So yeah, if you want to tune into more of my work, you need a little bit more stimulation of this kind of conversation with spirit, then please Patreon, please sign up. I would really appreciate your subscription. There's a free basic membership, and then there's the paid groups. You do you choose you acknowledge your power of agency, your muscle of decision, and see how energy might flow for you. So links will be in the YouTube video below, and I hope to see you sometime for 2025 if you don't make our becoming program. But yeah, all right, take care, loves. Until our next time, see you.